My fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger.
By 2006, I realized that the Iraq War was one of the biggest foreign policy issues of my generation, and I wanted to be a part of that. I wasn't for the war. I never thought that going in was actually a good idea, but by 2006, again, I realized that that was besides the point. Going to Iraq was meant to be a 6-month plan. It quickly turned into a 1-year plan, and I ended up staying there for over 4 years, which is about 3 times more than most Americans who went to Iraq. Most tours are 1 year for civilians. I mean, danger was pervasive and it was constant. Clearly I came back alive and in one piece, but there was no guarantee of that. I mean, from day to day, moment to moment, anything can happen anywhere. And I was acutely aware of that, as we all were. You were either in the right place at the right time or you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's amazing that more Americans and more people in general didn't get killed because we were barraged during certain periods constantly. And to think of the thousands of people that were at the embassy versus the number of casualties was remarkable. Ryan Crocker, who was one of the 4 ambassadors under which I served and arguably the greatest American statesman of our time, liked to say, a good day in Iraq is a bad day anyplace else, which is an accurate assessment. I mean, what was remarkable, especially in Iraq, was working in an extremely fast-paced, high-threat environment where crises were constant, frankly ubiquitous, and I had to get to know and intimately understand complex situations to help find solutions. Multiple cultures, I mean, the military culture is completely different than the civilian culture, and to see how varying personalities played into the solutions that we found to various problems, was fascinating. I mean, some of the historical figures, there are figures that are going to become part of history, whether it be General David Petraeus or Ambassador Ryan Crocker, or having to staff Secretary Condoleezza Rice's VIP visits, or Dick Cheney's, or Joe Biden's, or Senator Obama's, for that matter, or Angelina Jolie, who came to Iraq twice during my tenure, and I was handling her media.
The trial of Saddam Hussein is about to begin. This is supposed to be the first of many trials in which he stands accused of atrocities committed during his reign. For days, the world's press have been waiting for this historic moment.
Being in Iraq itself was unique, but being able to attend court sessions with not just Saddam Hussein, but the journalists and the press that were putting the story out literally to the world was very unique. Working at the courthouse was quite an experience because I was essentially in the courtroom, seated in the back, of course, with the press, virtually every day. Normally, the press were let in and everybody, the defense attorneys, the prosecution, were seated before the defendants. The defendants were let in last. I remember one day in particular when Saddam Hussein walked in, of course, with guards at his side. He caught a glimpse of me in the gallery in the back. I wasn't yet seated, and he just stopped, looked straight at me. Making eye contact with Saddam Hussein certainly was surreal. I mean, here was a villainous figure. I mean, one of the most villainous figures in modern world history. However, at the same time, he was also a man. I mean, he wasn't some superhero.
California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger was met with a loud roar from soldiers as he walked into a crowded dining hall at Camp Victory on the outskirts of Baghdad.
I was also responsible for congressional delegations and governor delegations and other VIP visits to Iraq. As the world knows, I mean, Iraq was front page news for years. And I was in Iraq between 2006 and 2010. So I was there before the surge, during the surge, after the surge. And Washington being what it was, congressmen and senators and governors wanted to come and see for themselves what was going on. I mean, from John McCain multiple times to then Senator Barack Obama and then Senator Hillary Clinton to numerous others. I like to joke and say that I met more than one half of the U.S. Congress and their top aides, which probably is accurate. Vice President Cheney was planning a visit to President Talabani's house in Baghdad for a lunch. And the day of the visit, an assistant in the U.S. Embassy's protocol office asked me if I had time to make my way over to President Talabani's house and alert the cook about a food allergy that Vice President Cheney has. And in order to do that, I had to organize a military convoy just to bring me over there, because anything that required movement outside of the green zone required a lot of personnel and a lot of security. So I get over to the house and I speak to one of Talabani's assistants and alert him to the fact that Dick Cheney is allergic to pomegranates. And the message was relayed to the cook, so pomegranates were supposed to be off the menu. Well, lo and behold, after the lunch, I find out that President Talabani himself, after the vice president sits down to eat, picks up a tray, looks at Dick Cheney, and says to him, "Mr. Vice President, would you like any pomegranate rice?"